I know you've got so much going on, and obviously Kathy and I continue to admire you from afar, and
Oh, thank you. Oh my
with
gosh.
all that you're doing, and
Thank you.
so yeah, so I can't wait to get into it.
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. And so, really one of the reasons why I first thought of you to come on the podcast is because you were such an inspiration to a lot of people. And I know in 2018, you won an award for that. But also, I think I read somewhere on your LinkedIn bio that that is your passion is empowering women and young girls. Is that correct? And you live that
That's
to
it.
your
Yep.
fullest every single day?
hmm Yep.
And so
That's really, yeah.
I love that. And
It's not
so
that I don't care about men. I care about men, but I don't.
no,
I care about women more.
listen, there's a lot of men that can take care of themselves. There's a lot, and I
hmm
appreciate the fact of just like everything else, when there's a specific group of people that needs to be encouraged and supported to go and achieve lots of different things that, maybe they never saw for themselves. It's amazing. And so I
hmm
applaud all of that work. And
Oh yeah.
I know it's not directed at anything other than here.
That's
Let's
it.
do what we can to give women a voice, to give women a
Yeah.
platform, as well as girls, so that they know that hey, you can go up and achieve everything that you want in life.
Exactly. Exactly. Because they can.
Excellent. Exactly.
hmm
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at our vice president. Um,
Right. Exactly.
and so, um, when did you first kind of, I guess, realize that this was a passion for you? This was something that, you wanted to explore and use kind of your voice for.
Um, I actually had a lot of mentors growing up. I had an older woman who mentored me, who was a poet. Her name was Virginia Settle. She actually passed away a few years ago, but
Mm,
she kind of took me under her wing as a young writer. And she was the first person to show me how to like print my poems out, like type them up and put them in a book.
mm,
And and she was just awesome. And so I think that was the first time she taught me how to like write stuff down and then share it out with the community and see what kind of response you get. And don't worry about what they say, just keep writing anyway. And so
mm-hmm,
she was kind of my first lesson in like each one, teach one, reach one, right? She saw a need in me at the time. I was maybe 23 and she was 60 something.
mm.
So she was so very far apart in age, but she saw something in me, I think. And so she kind of started me on that path of publishing. And I published my first book probably 4 years later.
But that's fantastic. And so, that just goes to really all of that encouragement, right? Because had something negative transpired, or, as you were writing and exploring this world for yourself that maybe kind of hindered that, you wouldn't maybe not have gone on to do all the amazing things that, you've gone on
Exactly.
to do,
Right. Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
I had a gentleman on who is a publisher of Today Magazine, and he once said, during our conversation, what if Rembrandt was taught, like, your paintings are foolish, um,
Right.
you wouldn't go on to have that art. And so everything, I think, obviously should just be encouraged and supported, and allow for people to grow, right? Because we can't get good at anything
Right.
unless we do something for the first time.
Right. And honoring the art in everyone. Everyone, I feel like there's art in everyone. So my mom's an artist, that she was a painter before she got sick. And
Yeah.
so she would see the art, like even abstract paintings, which I can't always see. Like I'm more of a like, refined. No. I'm more of a like, I want to see the person's face and their arms and their fingers. Like I want to see, that sounds
Yeah.
very old fashioned, but that's just my preference. But my
Sure.
mother, she can see the art. She can see it in anything. And I think that's what made her such a great teacher, is that she was able to pull that out of artists that had been told by other people, what you're doing is not art.
Mm-hmm.
If it's
Mm-hmm.
abstract, if it's colorful, if it's, too many designs in it, then they would just kind of shoo them away. And my mother would encourage that in them.
That's great. That's great. And so when did you first start to kind of explore your art with writing and, just, whether it be poetry or all of the
Mhm.
work that you do?
So I started performing poetry when I was like 5 years old. I would perform at like these open mic events and kind of fashion shows in this little town I lived in. And so, but it was other people's poetry. So they would basically give me the sheet the night before and I would read it with back and forth like that. And I would memorize it and then I'd perform it. Then I'd forget it the next day. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
kind of how I learned. Yeah, it was very weird, right? I learned to study that way. That's how I learned in college. I studied that way. I would learn it that night and then it was gone. And
Hmm.
so it started with that, but I didn't write my own poetry until I was in my 20s. My
Oh.
son was maybe 2 or 3 at that point, and I went to I was actually at Stick. I was taking classes at Stick. Had a professor who gave me a book by a poet named Lucille Clifton, who I'd never heard of. I'd heard of Nikki Giovanni, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, but I had never heard of Lucille Clifton. And she wrote just like I wrote, just like when I would
Mm.
write poetry, it was just like that. So it was these little poems that are almost like a conversation. They didn't rhyme, and it was a snapshot of that day. So me and my husband had a peanut butter sandwich and it's Sunday morning. And, so I write like that. So for
Yeah.
me to be able to see someone else write like that and be famous, I'm like, oh my gosh. So that opened my voice up. I think it showed me that I didn't have to write like even Nikki Giovanni, who I think also writes really cool, but not like me. And so
Hmm.
I was able to see this writer be kind of write like I write.
Well, and
So
it's
that's what started.
really, and that which is fantastic because it's also, it's more about what you have to say as well as how you then put that out there, right? Like,
Right.
and I don't know. I mean, I don't really write that much. But since having met with you,
Mhm.
and you were so gracious when I originally, back when I was taking care of mom and I wanted to
Yeah.
start this blog or this book, but I really just didn't have the capacity at the time to kind of
Right.
put all of that together. But years later, now that I'm focused more on that,
Exactly.
I've gone back to all of the information that you shared with me during our conversation, so that I could start to put some of my thoughts and my ideas down as to how this was going to look.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
but that's really what it is, right? Like everyone has a story, everyone has information that they want to share, and so however you feel like you want to share it, um, you're able to help explore people, help people explore that, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think it could be a good message. It could be a message that's hard to share. I know for me in the earlier years, I would write a lot about motherhood, being a single mom. And then I started writing about marriage and love. And so a lot of what I write now is about marriage and love, friendships.
Mhm.
And then now I've kind of shifted into still writing, but trying to also deliver some sort of peace with people. Right. So at night when I post those videos, like people are really watching them and enjoying them and looking for them at night. And so
Yeah.
that's just a 1 minute, it's like with no voice or anything, just, so I'm kind of finding my way and figuring out how can I impact people in a way that makes them better, I guess, on the other
Hmm.
end of it. If that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah, and I think that it's always an evolution, right? Because as you evolved, so has your priorities, so has
Right.
what you're going through, and so this voice allows you to just share what I'm going through, and sharing all of that just helps people understand that they're not alone. And I think that
Right.
more and more we just need to understand that we're not all in the same boat, right? But this journey is hard,
It is.
and it's difficult for everyone. And
Right.
so instead of tearing us all apart, how about we lift and support each other so that we can all
Exactly.
do some great things. Um,
And we all have a community. If you have an online community at all, you have a community. I know for Instagram, I feel like I'm on Instagram more than any other
yeah,
platform. But when I brought mom here, a year and a half ago, we didn't know she was sick. Like we knew she'd had some mobility issues. We didn't know she was that sick. And
yeah,
so people on my followers on Instagram have seen her from that first day when she got here with her makeup and her wig and then now. So I'm intentional about that because I want them to see like how this is progressing. It's not all, rosy days. Like there's
it's
hard,
hard.
firsthand. It's hard days. Yeah.
It's difficult, and you
Mm-hmm.
know what I presented during that time when I was taking care of mom was not what I was feeling. Like
Right. Oh, yes.
it's a difficult thing to
Mm-hmm.
do. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you don't always share, even though I think when I was going through this journey with mom, I tried to share as much as possible because I wanted that same thing, right? I
Yes.
wanted
Yes.
people to understand that um, this journey is hard, but it's also an amazing journey. And
Exactly.
really what I got from that whole experience is irreplaceable.
Right.
But yeah, it's extremely difficult. But having that
Mm-hmm.
voice and sharing those things,
Exactly.
allows people to connect. And it's amazing how we look at maybe differences and immediately, separate ourselves. But
Right.
the reality is that we have so much in
Oh
common
my
with
gosh.
people. If we just stop and have a conversation, you have
Yeah.
so much in common with people that you just truly, truly don't know. And so
Right.
it is just a matter of that. And
Yeah.
so now you mentioned that your mother was a teacher.
Mhm.
Is that and has that kind of progressed you kind of always seeing yourself as this
Mhm.
mentor type of an individual and then kind of following in that same footsteps right
Oh,
now at the
absolutely.
craft, right?
Yeah, I think for her, like she was doing it more even on the community level. So she did community workshops and boys and girls clubs and like these kind of like, pop up things. And so she brought art wherever. And even her art exhibits, she would hang her paintings low so the kids, when they would come in, could see it. So people our age would be like, we can't see, it's not for you, it's for them. So, you know what I mean?
That's
So she just,
amazing. That's really
yes,
is such
I
a
actually have
like
pictures of that.
such a special thing to
Yeah.
do for people.
To be
And
thoughtful in
it's
that because people don't think about children. They don't think about children. I think about children right now, especially because of the pandemic and they've been home for a whole year with their parents. God bless them
mhm.
because like I would have run away with the like stick with the cloth on the side. That'd have been me, like Charlie Brown. That'd have been me because like there's no way.
I'm out.
Bye. So cause like what? Like my best friend has a 5-year-old and I'm like, I guarantee you he's sick of you too. I promise you he's
Oh,
tired of you too. I can bet you $5.
100%. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and it's, often in times, it's funny. I had my nephew over, um, and we did some baking and stuff, yesterday and it was great, but he's on the messier side. And
Yeah.
so he was cracking some eggs and, he was just like, oh, I don't do this a lot because, I make a mess. And I was just like, I understand that, but
Oh.
it's
Yeah.
okay. We'll clean it up. But like, go ahead
Right, exactly. It's fine.
but and it's just it's that constant evolution and I
Mhm.
think that it's an amazing thing to just always be so have that supportive feeling. There's I'm not this huge Miley Cyrus fan, but there was a song that she had that said um something to the effect of my mama always told me that I could, so I did. And that
Yeah.
was a really powerful statement for me.
Yeah.
Because what if we just always encourage things, right? Like there's things that I'm not very good at, and then there's things that I've
Hmm.
never been very good at. But if I
Right.
focused on all of them, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And
Exactly.
so, right,
Exactly.
like so we
Exactly.
follow these things that we're really good at. Your mother had a passion, obviously, for art, which is amazing that she
Hmm.
just continued to give that passion wherever she could.
Wherever she was. That's why anytime I get sad about her and think, God, we had so much we wanted to do, still do, I think
Hmm.
about everything. Like I'm surrounded by her artwork every single day and the gifts that she gave the children. So I can't be angry at all. She gave more in her life. And now she's just chilling. Like I put a picture up last week where she's just relaxing. I actually have a friend who I don't know her
Yeah.
personally, but I know her through Instagram. And she said, I think your mother's just relaxing right now. She's just resting. Once the pandemic's over, then you'll be able to see her again. You guys can spend time. And it's true. Like I honestly thought she was going to die during the pandemic. I did. I
Mm.
was like, she's not going to make it through this. There's no way.
It's so
And
tough. I
but
can't
she's still
even,
here. Yeah.
which is great. And it's
Yeah.
just, and it's obviously it's a constant evolution, but she obviously throughout her life, lived it with the passion that she had. And so I'm sure there's no
And that's
regret
what
for
gets me up every
anything,
day.
right? And that's
And
just
I
really where
actually,
the long days and all of that kind of pay off
right.
because you're doing stuff that you want to that drives your soul, that fuels
Exactly.
your fire.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like her paintbrushes are like magic wands. She has like one of those roll out paintbrush holders and it's all her paintbrushes, probably about 80 paintbrushes. So every time I visit her, I go on the weekends, I bring her a paintbrush so she can hold it in her hand and she'll like play with it on her face or whatever. But she's still an artist and like they're so good to her where she is because they know she's an artist. And one of the young girls went online, printed out all my mother's paintings and made a book and brought it to my mother. And my mother was able to see the paintings that she had painted. I'm like,
That's
Fallon
so
Health is like
special.
they're
That's
phenomenal. Yeah,
amazing. That's
they're phenomenal.
what an amazing person to. And
Right.
what's amazing? The more and more that I talk to people in this line of work, and obviously, you know, uh, with all the work that I did with the Alzheimer's Association, there's a few different people that I really connected with, and there's some just amazing people doing amazing work. And honestly, like it's a lot of what I want to highlight with this podcast is just showing, ordinary people doing extraordinary things,
Yeah.
because it's it's what gives them, energy and all of that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so now you've been at Baypath for how long? Like 7 years now?
So, yeah, actually, I have 7 years. So I started teaching there 5 years ago, and then I came into this role. Actually, it'll be 3 years. This week will be 3 years. So total about.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I just
And
realized that.
so what is this role that you're doing now?
So it's split. So I coach students. So all ages. So most of them are looking for jobs, or they're in a job and they need to be coached around salary negotiation or whatever. So I do that. And then I also teach. I teach a first, but it's kind of like a first year career program. So we teach them how to do the resume and how to interview and kind of those first year career skills. Yeah. And then the other part of it is I help them find jobs. So I help companies connect with us to get jobs and internships for students.
That's great.
It's a lot.
That's fantastic. And do you do any teaching classes on writing, or did you?
Not in this role, but it's funny. Before I came into this role, I used to be on campus a lot teaching workshops. Like they would hire me just like on the side, and I would come in and do that. Yeah, yeah. But not in this role. It's funny. No,
that's okay. Hey, listen, it's all about, and it's amazing. Talking to you, it's still all about community and giving back, right? Like, and so this is just another avenue for that.
Right. I mean, even being able to coach a student who, like me, is emotional and sensitive and takes everything personally. So you go into a role with a supervisor who is not like that, who does not care about your feelings, and they don't care. They're like, do your job. And so this student will call me, and I have to coach them through this because, I mean, I've been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's a good opportunity. And so to be able to kind of, as long as they're not hitting you or being malicious or mean, if they're just being stern and giving you direction. Direction's different than being mean. And it took me a long time to realize I'm a Southerner. So directing to me meant that you were a mean person. That you're mean.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
And it's tough because I'm also an equally sensitive person, and it's sometimes hard not to take things on so much. One of the things that I first did out of college was outside sales. And it was probably one of the best things that I ever could have done for myself, because it gave me such a thick skin for the rest of my life.
Right. That, because like you can do that, you can do anything.
It was just like, okay, I can hear no, and continue to go. But yeah, it's such a difficult time in somebody's life, making that transition from this academic place that they've been in, and now into this into this corporate world, which,
and they see, like, I feel like the young people have pressure too. They're seeing a lot of stuff online about move out by the time you're 21. When you graduate, you should have your own apartment. And one student earlier, I was like, you do not. That is not true. If your parents are supporting you and you're comfortable at home, stay home. You don't need to be in your own apartment unless you, like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Well, all my friends, I'm like, no, like, what?
As long
why would you struggle for no reason?
Yeah, as long as you're not struggling with it. If
exactly.
It's especially
it's
with
comfortable.
Especially with some of the student loan debt that the kids are coming out of school with.
Yeah.
To think on taking a payment for rent, it's just it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So
now, when we first talked, and I don't know, it might have been like 10 years ago, I think, that we first connected. You had just had one of your books being made into a feature film.
Yeah, and it took that long for it to actually be available. Yeah, seriously.
So now you've written what, like 7 books total? Is that how many?
7. Yep.
That's
7 books. I've written 2 novels. The Rhythm in Blue is the movie, and then I have the sequel to that. It's called But Now I See. And then I have 2 books of poetry, Double Dutch and But You Have Such a Pretty Face. And then I have 3 children's books, Gabby Gives Back, Gabby Saturday, and AJ the Magic Height.
That's fantastic. Now, when you wrote the novel did you write it thinking that it was going to be a feature film, or you just wrote that?
I just wrote it. I participated in something. I do it every year. It's called the National Novel Writing Month Challenge. It's in November. And you have 30 days to write a novel. So everyone kind of gets together on this website and you set your word count, and every day you write and you post your word count. So most people are doing about 5,000 words a day. Some people are doing less than that. You come out on the other end with garbage, right? You have probably about 50,000 words that you probably can use half of them, but that's what I did. And then I actually did a rewrite the next month, and then I put it on my computer. It was on my computer for almost 2 years. I didn't do anything with it. Keyshawn Dodds is the one who got it off my computer. So he took me to Harlem Book Fair, actually let me be at his table for free. And we were talking about our projects. And I said, well, I actually have a project I'm working on, but it's not finished. It's not edited yet. And he said, I have an editor. And within a couple of weeks, he had it with an editor. And then I published it in January of 2012. And within a month, it was purchased by a producer.
That's fantastic.
Which is unheard of. I didn't even think it was real. When she contacted me, I'm like, no way. Like, what? I'm living screaming about like, no. I can imagine someone calling you and saying, hey, I read your book. I want to make it into a feature film. I've already scouted locations. Right. Like
what? Like this is
I'll come to you.
This is surreal.
Yeah. So of course I'm thinking like, oh, this is like a famous producer. Where should I take her? Max's Tavern, right? I'm like, oh, Max's Tavern. That's fancy. To tell them that that's my fancy place, and I bring people here from New York City, right? Yeah,
it's a good place, you know.
But yeah, we had there, and she met me and had a binder of locations already scouted for each scene and for each, like, she was ready. She was ready for me to sign off on the contract, and we did.
Now, that's such a surreal experience.
Mm-hmm.
When you've written I'm sure at various times you've seen yourself in various different capacities.
Oh yeah.
Was this ever one of them?
No, not. I always thought I would be in movies, but not writing them. And honestly, the writing part of it. So I like writing novels, but the screenplay writing is not fun. Screenwriting is not fun. It's too technical. And then being on set is not fun, honestly, because it's 12-hour days and it's not fun. If you're acting, it is, but if you're just sitting, just watching. So, but my husband loved it. He loved the technical aspect of it. But I, as a creative, it was kind of like, it's kind of cool to hang out, but like, I didn't really care about that part of it.
Yeah. Can I sit back and write?
Right. Can I just go back to the house and eat and like watch TV? They're like, you're here out of what? Yeah. So but it was cool to see though.
Now, did you go through that whole process with, from start to finish with them so that
I did.
It was your story all the way through, right?
Yes. So what happens though is that, they'll look at the characters. And I've never done this before, but I'm assuming that they probably pull all the characters out of the book, maybe on a chart. All right, which ones do we want to keep? Which ones do? So they actually, at the very beginning, got rid of an entire storyline. And they got rid of two, I had children in the book that were not in the because it was hard to cast twins, right? So that ended up messing me up later on. Not messing me up, but it changed the story. So I wrote the novel after the movie came out and forgot that I had put twins in the first book and was basing it on the second book. So I write the second book, the twins are missing. So people who read the first book are like, where the hell's the twins? I'm like, oh my God, twins! I don't know. I have no idea. They're at camp. I don't know. So my advice to writers is write your books based on your books. Like if it gets made into a movie, still stay to the book, because you're going to have people, like I have people now reading my books back to back. So they find stuff that I didn't, because I wrote those books probably 7 years apart. Yeah.
And so there's going to be some variations that you didn't.
Absolutely. 2 whole people were missing from a family in my book, my second book. I was like, and on Amazon, if you go on Amazon, like there's reviews saying that it's a great book. I enjoyed it, but where were the twins? Oh, this was awesome, but where were the twins? Yeah.
Damn.
Yep. I'm like, well,
and listen, it happens. And these are the things that it's just
learn for next time.
Yeah. It's just part of life. I mean, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So it's just, as long as, hey, listen, people are still enjoying it. People are buying it. So it's that's great.
And not everybody's going to like it. That's okay. I mean, as a writer, I think I tell people, don't even look at your reviews, just write it and put it out and keep it moving. Because there are people who will read my books and love them, and other people, because one of my books has what I kind of like an urban cover. So it almost looks like it might be not Christian fiction, I guess. And people are upset when they buy it thinking it's going to have one thing in it, but there's no sex, there's no swearing, none of that stuff. And they will say that in the reviews, like this, I thought this was going to be one thing, and it's a good book, but this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So even like the cover, making sure it matches what's in the book.
And it's so difficult, right? Because we all have this image of what we want and
Mm-hmm.
what the perception of what we want for other people to
Right.
see. And I remember just even with all the different stuff that just like going on Mass Appeal for the first time, I was like, I don't even want to watch it. Like I said what I
Oh, no.
said. I
I
don't
won't
even
watch
like
this.
I don't know what I
I'll listen
said.
maybe, but yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. Hmm.
It's taken a little bit of time to kind of get over that.
Yes, you have to.
Because it's all just built up things again
Hmm.
that we have this just like perception or these things over the years that we get uncomfortable with, and we kind of just sit there with
Stop.
them.
And you can't, and you have to, like, I know for me, like I have to, I mean, I started seeing more engagement on my Instagram page when I started adding my own performances. So
That's
from The
it.
Wiz and me talking about my books, like for a long time, it was just quotes and it was, but I know now people, so because my old footage, I'm like, it's cringy to watch it, but it's like, they haven't seen it. They don't know that side of me.
And not
So
only that, but people are there because of you, and
exactly.
so when
Yep.
they see you, it's more authentic.
That's true. You're right.
Anything that I post that has a picture of me kind of doing something or whatever it might be, there's so much more engagement than
Yeah.
just a random
Yes.
quote.
I mean, I'm shocked. Those videos that I do, and it's really the same video every night, but I change the music. But depending on the music and time of day I post it, some nights it's 17,000 people watch those.
It's amazing.
17,000 people. And it's just 1 minute. So I'm like, what can I do to get them to like give $1 or something? I don't know. You know what I mean? How can I monetize that? Like, I got to figure that out. Because I mean, that's money somewhere. It's got to be money somewhere,
It is. Well,
you
and I
know?
think that if you could potentially record that and post it like like on
That's what my
YouTube
son
and have
was
like a
saying.
YouTube subscription and start doing these that
There,
way.
yeah.
Um, Once you start to get that following, you start to then get sponsors of people
Yeah.
who will watch it.
Because my son was like, he's like, Mom, he's like, you could, because I guess when he used to have trouble sleeping, he would turn YouTube on. They would have these 10-hour videos of like the ocean or whatever. And he would put it on and there would be ads running through it. And that person was getting paid, but he was asleep. He wasn't even watching the ads. You know what I mean? So, and he has a
It's
studio. I'm like, I go right to the studio and record it.
it's crazy. I wanted to do this podcast for probably like a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half, but my own hesitation and my own insecurity kept me from pushing it off, not being
Right.
ready, all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did this first one. It was just all by myself. And then after I did that, everything exploded. I was like, all
Yes.
right,
See?
here's the guest. This is what I want. It's not going to be by myself because no one wants to just hear me talk.
Right. Exactly.
And
Right.
so it was like, okay, well, who do I want to have on and guest? Now, it was a big picture, and it just all went back to the ideas that I have about, again, this supportive environment of connecting with people who are doing extraordinary things to help others, right? Because I'm just a huge believer that while this journey is ours and it's up to us to make whatever we want out of it, we can't do it alone
Nope.
and we need help along the way. And
Yeah.
so the more that we find what makes us special, we can then give that to other people,
Right. Right.
and that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, I know all about what you do
Oh,
and how
yeah.
you connect people. And so what is some of the most, I guess, things that you're most proud of when you look back at just being this natural giver?
Mm-hmm.
um what's some of the most things what are you most proud of with some of the things that you've been able to, I guess, just do for somebody else?
Yeah, I think probably the most meaningful that I've done in my work, it actually was my work at the Cancer Society,
Mm,
was we were able to put on this exhibit where we gave disposable cameras, back when they had disposable cameras, to children of breast cancer patients and survivors. And they followed their mothers around for a whole week and they took pictures and then we had them developed and had an exhibit. And we had all these
mm,
women come, we had live music, we had food, and then we booked mammograms for women at that event. So it was this full circle where it was like they were learning about breast cancer, but it wasn't scary because there were music and there were children and we had some women diagnosed that night. I mean, that, at like
mm.
later on for their mammogram and they ended up being fine because of that. They would have never known. They would have never gotten it that early. So I think for me, like I'm someone who I like to see a project like from the beginning to finish and see what impact I made and then go to the next thing. Like I'm not a kind of like, let's do a bunch of stuff. Like I'm doing one thing to the end and what's the next thing to the end. So that probably was the most meaningful.
That's
most
amazing.
Impactful.
And I was just going to say, probably just a huge impact when you saw some of those pictures and the way that children see their mom.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like,
That was the biggest thing. Yeah.
Because as a mom, you'll never be able to have that perspective, just like anything else, right? Like I can't have your perspective. How could I? You can't have my perspective.
Right.
But together,
right.
Even though we may see things differently, the more that we talk and kind of come together, we form a different perspective.
Right.
And that's the beauty of conversations versus just, kind of looking at differences.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so meaningful. And I think, even years later, like sadly, some of the women that were in the exhibit did end up passing away, but their children had these pictures they wouldn't have had otherwise. Because, mom, how moms are. I know my mom growing up, she hated taking pictures. Even though she was gorgeous, she hated taking pictures. And then when my son was small, I'd force myself to do it. But you never like how you look in pictures, right? But it's important. And so I think this was, it was at least 30 pictures of their mother that they had after she passed away. So
yeah, which is
it was full circle for me. Yeah.
And I think that there's this image of us always just judging ourselves. How do we look? How is this? Instead of just enjoying the fact of, I have this amazing picture that, if I didn't take this, I wouldn't have. So who cares what I look like? Because when I look back on it,
you'll be happy.
It's going to be an amazing memory.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And so when you're looking at any new books on the horizon, any, things that, exciting projects that, that you're working on?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be our final Gabby book. My mom actually did the drawings for it just before she got sick. So probably like 2 years ago. And it's about Gabby, who's our children's character, her having dreams of being different things. So one of them was president, which was funny that this was before Kamala. And it was so many, I'm trying to think of astronaut, like music producer, like things that you wouldn't think a woman would be. So that's going to be next. And actually she asked me about it last weekend when I was with her, because for me, it's sad because I feel like it might be our last, we'll be, I don't know. You don't ever know, right? Only God knows.
Yeah.
But it's been holding now for 2 years. So she was like, are you publishing or what? What's going on?
Well,
so that's next.
And you talk about it being sad because it might be the last book, but there could be a different book for this journey.
Right.
And so, I think that and I'm sure you'll see it, but even her drawings
that has changed.
But to still capture it.
Yes.
That's also a truly impactful piece in itself.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah. I one thing I got for her, hold on one second. Yeah. So I actually got her this, well, when she could still like do this with her hands, I got her this app on the iPad, and I loaded one of her paintings onto the iPad, and she was able to use like a pencil and make a new painting out of her old painting. So it was like an Adobe Spark app. And I'm like, that would be so cool. And I would love for her to do like an ad campaign about her, about an artist that's still able to create, even long after she can't paint anymore with a paintbrush.
Up very quick.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
But I wanted to ask you, just, you're speaking to your mom, how is she doing? How are things for her?
She's stable. So that's I'm so happy. She's at Mason Wright. She goes to a program at Fallon Health like 3 days a week. So it's like an all inclusive program. And she's on pureed foods now. So she's kind of, it's kind of declining, but at least she's able to still eat. She still has an appetite.
Good.
And she knows who we are when we go see her. She knows her family. Like we're able to do face like the messenger now. We did Zoom, which was very weird. And I laugh about this. I'm like, my mother feels a way about Zoom the way we feel about Zoom at this point. Because it was too much. It was just because we do Facebook Messenger every week, and that's fine for her. But it's because people pop up one at a time, and Zoom was like everybody. Yeah. And she got so scared. Like we did one family Zoom, and she thought we were a movie. She didn't think we were real. Like it was bad. Yeah. So yeah, it was really bad. But now, yeah. So I get to see her in person. So when I'm with her, I pull up the camera and she's able to see. So she's stable. She's safe. She's eating. She's painting every day. So
that's great. Yeah.
I'm grateful because a year ago it was bad. A year ago, right before the pandemic, she was still smoking cigarettes then. So she was still trying to go outside to smoke at Mason Wright. because they wouldn't let them smoke, in the building, of course. So here I am every day. I'm worried that she's going to fall because she couldn't really walk well at that point. So like a year ago, I was in such a different headspace
Well, and
than
just
today.
and then being in COVID and not being
Right.
able to like just go and have coffee and
Mm-mm.
sit and do all of those things. And
And I had
so
just brought her here 10 weeks before COVID
yeah,
hit. I
like
just brought her here.
uh like
Yeah. So
how
hers,
difficult.
yeah, she has sisters that I think are regretting having her come up here because she came up here and then immediately COVID hit. So they haven't seen her. They haven't been able to see her. But they couldn't care for her anymore. It was too much for them. So
Well, that's it. And
great.
it's such a difficult thing on the family. Like
Right,
it
exactly.
really,
It is.
one of the things that I had people throughout that entire journey tell me to take care of myself.
Yes.
And I thought that I was, but I wasn't, right? Because
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
it wasn't until I really started to talk to a therapist that things helped. But even at that point, I still wasn't the best that I could have been. But
Right,
it's,
exactly.
but you just do what you can. And
That's it.
so, but at least that part of it eases the mind a little bit for you,
Exactly.
so that you can go and see her, as well as have
Exactly.
her just kind of at this place that at least things are okay.
Right. She's stable. She's, I mean, I like a year ago, like I said, I was every day I was worried because she would try to leave to go smoke because, and so you're a
Yeah,
smoker, you're gonna figure it out. And
you're
all I
gonna.
could see was her falling on Walnut Street, like just falling into the street. Like that every night I would think that. And
Hmm.
so then COVID hit. So that was a blessing in disguise because she couldn't leave the building. So then
Yeah,
she went on the patch and then she got sick at that point. But like, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, but
yeah.
for about 3 months it was bad. I'm like, Mom, quit smoking. It was
So
bad.
difficult. And
Yeah.
so as we wrap this up, I
Hmm.
want to explore just a little bit more about, what keeps you driving for your passion to helping people in the community. And so, um, you know, anything new on the horizon or any different events that people should know about that,
Hmm.
maybe don't know that you're involved with, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think probably the biggest thing is I'm part of the board of Girls Inc. in Holyoke. And so
Mm.
I always encourage people. We have our big Spirit of Girls breakfast we do every year, but it's gonna be virtual this year. So we're going to be looking for people to be table captains. So people want to do that, they can contact me. I'm really, really excited because we're trying to do a lot in Holyoke. Oh, it's Springfield too.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of one thing that's coming down the pike. But for me, so I'm actually going to start shooting some small films, some short films. That's why I've been kind of playing around with shooting video and kind of putting that up and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And
Yeah.
so I have a short film we're going to shoot in April called Mama's Boy. That's about a little boy, not a little boy, he's a teenager who is being abused by his stepfather, and he's deciding if he's going to kill him or threaten
Mm.
him. Like he's figuring out, like, I got to get him out of here today. So he does something to make him leave, and then we have to figure out what that is.
Wow.
So it's like 8 minutes, but
Impactful. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And
But I'm
just
not going to make the boyfriend a villain. I feel like we do that a lot where we make men the villains in these movies. So
sure.
I want it to be full circle where there's a healing process for the father too, or the stepfather, because there's a story here
True.
for him too.
Yeah. No,
So
absolutely. That's fantastic. And again, always helping people out, always, being a part of the community. It's something that, again, I truly admire about you.
thank you.
When Kathy introduced me, and I know you and Kathy go way back,
Oh yeah.
she said something about, like a spoken word thing that she first, was introduced to you maybe like 13, 15 years ago. And
A long time ago.
so obviously, again, it's just part of who you are and what you do. And I applaud you for all that you do in the
Thank
community.
you.
And please keep up the great work.
I will. Thank you. And you too. This is great. This is
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, Crystal. We'll talk to you
Okay.
soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye now.